Hello, and welcome back to the Sad to Savage podcast. I'm your host, Shelby Sacco Spinnick, and today we're diving into the transformation that can completely change how you achieve your goals, and that is going to be moving from being sidetracked, easily distracted, overwhelmed, or pulled off course to experiencing real success through focus, intentional action, and consistency. So, we're going to go from sidetracked to success. If you're listening, I just wanted to remind you guys that this season I do have video. It's on YouTube and linked in the description of this episode. And also, every episode in this mini series has a worksheet that you can work through everything that we're talking about and going over. And that's also linked in the description of this episode. Now, we're going to explore the psychology behind why it's so easy to get sidetracked, how your brain responds to distractions, and the mindset shifts and habits that help you get back on track and stay on track. And by the end of this episode, my goal is for you to understand not just why distractions can derail you, but how to actually reclaim your control, build momentum, and move confidently towards your goals. If you're watching, you can see that my cats are going to be in the video today. They usually just like bang on my office door. I don't have a door for my office. I have like those little sliding farm doors. And they recently figured out that if they bang on it enough, they can slip half their body under it and get stuck. So, in an attempt for me to not panic, I just left the doors open today. Another reason why I wanted to do this episode, Sidetracked to Success, is because with each episode, I am sitting down, spending a couple hours researching, understanding, and then building habits for. And this is something that I think I wanted to learn more about in general and teach you guys, but also something that I struggle with being sidetracked when it comes to really big things in my life, whether it's work or just things that I want to accomplish and do. Believe it or not, my Sad to Savage 6-week program came to me while I was working out. That huge, it was like the best thing that's ever happened to my business. This program, it came to me while I was working out and trying to come up with a way to teach everyone what I did to change my habits around weight loss and nutrition and health. And it ironically was also in the middle of me planning a couple weddings. And it's funny because I look back and I'm like, that whole program coming to life was literally an answer to a prayer, but also I was so sidetracked from wedding planning. And it's just funny reflecting. But there are other things that I kind of struggle with getting sidetracked. I work from home. My employees come to the house. I recently just got an office space, which I'm super excited about. But there are just so many tools and things that I learned in here and it helped me better understand myself. And I'm really excited for you guys to just learn and get takeaways that could help you in your life too. Now, let's go over what getting sidetracked actually means before we dive into the science. But getting sidetracked is when you lose focus on your original goal or your intention because something else is pulling your attention or energy or effort away. It's usually something that is easier or more comfortable or more immediately rewarding. And it's not necessarily that you're quitting on your goal. It's almost like you are drifting away from it. You still want that thing or that goal. You're just not acting in alignment with it. Now, from a psychological standpoint, the brain, when it gets sidetracked, what's happening is that the planus and focus part of your brain, the prefrontal cortex, is underactive and the brain shifts towards more short term relief or reward. And then also, attention moves away from the long term goals and towards what feels better right now. In simpler terms, it's when your brain chooses comfort, distraction, or ease over that kind of effort and follow through. In my own life, a place where I see this is when I'm super, super overwhelmed with work and I have a big task or a big project. I'm like, oh, let me get a quick win. And I go like vacuum or do something super random because I know I can get a small win and feel good about myself and feel like I'm productive if I do one of those smaller, easier tasks. But ultimately, I'm sidetracked from my goal and the bigger picture of what's going on. I think we're all guilty of being sidetracked, which again is why I'm so excited for this episode. Just little tips that can help us in those moments. Now, there are three main kind of brain pieces involved in being sidetracked that we kind of went over, but I want to dive in a little bit deeper. So when I mentioned the prefrontal cortex, the part of your brain that's responsible for focus, planning, self-control, long-term goals, do this now so the future benefits me. When this part is online, like it's active and we're thinking logical, we feel clear, intentional, and disciplined. But when it is tired or overwhelmed, that's when it's going to check out. Next, the amygdala, which is the alarm system, that is the part of your brain that's scanning for stress, threat, feeling overwhelmed, emotional discomfort. Your amygdala does not care about your goals. It cares about safety and it cares about relief. It thinks it's doing its job. And so when life gets hard, busy, or feels emotionally charged, the amygdala activates and sends your brain into fight, flight, freeze, or avoid. And I think avoid really falls in line with sidetracking. The next thing that we're going to look at from the brain standpoint is your dopamine system, which is what is really seeking reward. Dopamine is the anticipation of a reward, and it's that chemical release in your brain. Your brain loves easy wins, things like scrolling through social media, snacks, starting new things, avoiding hard things, just like quick hits of little dopamine. And when your dopamine is low or it is inconsistent, your brain is going to look for those quick hits instead of that slow progress that aligns more with long-term goals, which is usually things that we are sidetracked from. A really big thing that I want to call out that I learned while researching this episode is how habits play a role in sidetracking and how we can actually create a habit of sidetracking. So, for example, think about yourself when you say you're sitting down to work and you get sidetracked and you go on social media. That can become a habit. So when you're stressed and you don't know your next step for work, instead of sitting and having a habit that helps you become aligned, like a little routine or a system, you might have the habit already created of picking up your phone and scrolling because it gives you that relief and that satisfaction or a quick hit of dopamine in that moment of stress. We can literally create a negative habit of being sidetracked. I think that's why when I'm super overwhelmed with work, my sidetrack habit is to go clean something and do something so I can feel a little bit more productive, where that doesn't really help me with my work or my goals. Now, that habit being reinforced is because it's giving you temporary relief. Dopamine is released, stress could drop from it. Your brain learns that avoiding a task made me feel better. So now I'm going to do it again and again and again and again. And then it becomes not a one-time thing. And then sidetracking can actually get worse over time with that built habit. And then every time that you avoid something and get sidetracked, then the task feels bigger, the discomfort will continue to grow, and the brain remembers that avoidance is the solution. So strengthening the avoidance pathway in the brain, that and creating that as a habit is why we get to a place where we're like, oh my gosh, I don't know why I keep doing this. I know that it's wrong. I don't know why I keep getting so sidetracked. It's because our brain learned it. But if you've ever listened to any of my previous episodes, you know that you can train your brain to do anything, create any new habit. You have control. Awareness is the biggest piece in every equation that is missing. Becoming aware of a place that you were struggling or a place that you can change, and then using that to your advantage to help you change your life. A quick real world example of being sidetracked is like comparing your brain to your phone. When too much is going on, your phone can overheat. When your battery's low, that little thing turns on where it's like battery saving mode. And that battery saving mode, it can shut down essential features. That's kind of what's happening in your brain when your prefrontal cortex is shutting down and your focus and discipline are first to go. Sidetracking is how we can see it, a low power mode opposed to a failure. Another thing I want to call out is that you do not need more motivation when you get sidetracked. It's not that you're not motivated. It's not that you don't want these things. It's that you need a brain friendly system to assist you, because getting sidetracked isn't a character flaw. From a neurological level, it's a response to something, which is what we're going to figure out. Let's go over some examples of getting sidetracked and what it looks like in real life. And then I'm going to walk you guys through how to find specifically the area that you're struggling with so that I can go over habits specific for you and that scenario, because all of us listening might get sidetracked in completely different areas of our life based on who we are and what we do on a daily basis. And what I want you guys to do is take what you need from this episode, what applies to you, so that you can then go forward today, tomorrow, next week, this whole next month, slowly working to create change. Say you struggle with getting sidetracked in terms of being productive. Maybe it's that you sit down to work and you end up scrolling, or you start a new project instead of finishing the current one. Literally me starting my whole business project, but not finishing planning my weddings, but they all turned out okay. Anyway, maybe it's cleaning or organizing to avoid researching something that you have to start. That thought pattern might look like, I'll just do this first and then that. Maybe it comes to health and habits, like skipping workouts after a busy day or letting one off meal turn into a full week of eating unhealthy. Maybe it's planning routines but not actually following them through, or saying I'll start again on Monday. That thought pattern is I'll get back on track soon. Maybe it's from an emotional standpoint, like stress leading to avoidance, or when you're overwhelmed, letting it lead you to feeling numb, like needing to scroll, snack, or just zone out. Or maybe it's that when you get in a bad mood, it derails the entire day. And that thought pattern might look like, you know what, I don't have the energy for this right now. Maybe it comes to life and your goals, like knowing what you want, but not ever making progress in that category, or letting other people's needs derail your own plans, or constantly changing goals instead of committing to one, or just feeling busy but stuck. The thought pattern there would be I'm doing a lot, I'm just not doing what I actually want. The solution to me for going from sidetracked to success is understanding ourselves and why we're personally in our own lives getting sidetracked, and then taking small steps to build structure. Structure is the key, from my perspective, to everything. Because if we zoom out and think about when we get sidetracked, if we had systems in place, like these little habits we're going to go over in a second, or a routine, or something planned that we don't have to in the moment make that decision about, that's something that we do, that we've trained ourselves to do, that is going to be the key for us, right? Having a structure to rely on, so that we don't have to rely on actively choosing it in that moment, already having it planned out for us. Structure really does fix sidetracking, because it's going to remove the need to rely on motivation, willpower, or that constant decision making. And remember, we talked about earlier, those are kind of the first things to shut down when your brain is stressed or is overwhelmed. Structure will also let your brain run on autopilot instead of effort. And structure works because it does the thinking before you're actually tired, emotional, overwhelmed. So then you don't have to go and fight yourself in the moment. Now, in the brain, structure reduces decisions and decision fatigue, which this is the thing that I struggle with so much, and why I love my habits and routines. I really, really struggle with decision fatigue. I feel like there are so many decisions to make every single day. And where I really learned this about myself was that in the morning, it would take me like 10 to 15 minutes to pick out an outfit. And for what? It was just hard for me to decide. But if I laid out my outfit at the end of the day for the next day, that helped make such a big difference in my life, because the decision was already made. It wasn't an extra thing that I had to do in the morning while I was doing a bunch of other things. So every single time that you ask yourself in your brain, like, when should I do this? What should I start with? Do I feel like doing this? What should I do this next? This. It drains your mental energy. I could not agree with this more. And I think about this when I'm really stressed out and I'm sitting at work and I'm like, what do I do? I've got 50 tasks going on and I'm thinking where to start, how to start, and I'm going over it. It is so overwhelming. It puts me kind of in a bad place to start. But every single day, one habit that I've created on my own is writing a to-do list at the beginning of each day. And once I have that to-do list and I kind of brain dump, I'll go 1, 2, 3, 4, and I will circle the most important things and put them in order, so I know that is where I'm starting. That task right there is my first thing. I have it lined out for me so that I have some type of structure to follow. That way, I know everything I have to do, but I have a plan instead of just sitting there and bopping back and forth and kind of letting that throw me off. The brain has a limited decision budget every day. Kind of think about it like that. So when that budget's gone, the brain is going to default to the easiest option. So when you have structure, it pre-decides it for you. Structure also will help you keep the prefrontal cortex online. So again, that prefrontal cortex handles the focus, follow through, decision making, logical thinking, and that stress, overwhelm, or uncertainty helps kind of weaken it and work against it. But when you have structure, it's giving your brain clarity. It makes tasks predictable and it signals safety to the brain. And when the brain feels safe and clear, focus can stay online. Structure also prevents emotional hijacking. Oh my goodness, right now, this is so apparent in my life. And it's crazy for me to think about. Without structure, a bad mood can derail everything the whole day. And stress without structure decides your behavior, but with structure, you're not negotiating with your emotions, and you're also following the plan regardless of how you feel. Structure helps you separate your feelings from your actual actions. So, right now, I've been having honestly a really challenging time just with things happening in my life. Um, and any time that I experience something really hard or something that hurts me, and I'm going through something, I always thank God for the habits and routines that I have created, because there are days where on the days that I'm like, I just want to sit and cry in bed because of how I feel, that's not necessarily an option, because I have these other things in place that I do with structure, that I follow, habits that I've created, and I get up and still do those things. And that's not to say that I don't cry in bed sometimes, but I do in between those moments, which sounds so funny. But if you've ever, I mean, everyone is human and has things happen in their life that are hard and horrible and suck to go through. But having a structure, it almost every single time, actually, it has saved me from different things that I'm dealing with. I'm trying to think if I made that make sense. Yeah. For example, like, I could be happy or I could be sad, but I'm working out regardless. I could be happy or I could be sad, but I'm going to do my nighttime routine. Whereas in the past, a different version of me wouldn't. If I was sad or happy, it would really depend on my mood. But because of structure, it's depending on that structure in moments where I need it, where I can actually rely on it. Structure also reduces task intimidation, because big, vague goals do trigger avoidance sometimes, and structure can help you break goals into specific actions, clear start times, defined durations, and your brain is far less likely to avoid something that feels small, clear, and contained. That's another thing. Whenever I have something really, really big, like my goals, and if you watch my videos of my monthly habit planning on TikTok, you'll kind of see how I do this. Whenever I set big goals, how I'm able to work towards and accomplish them is by taking like 50 steps backwards and breaking them into really small little things that I can do that will add up, and then creating that, like, those habits, those routines, that structure around those to reach that big goal. Another example here would be structure reducing intimidation is, say you want to make a goal around your health, but it seems so overwhelming. Like, how am I actually going to do that? Say you want to work on feeling your best inside your body, becoming strong, finding foods that fuel you. That could be really overwhelming as a goal, and your brain could say, okay, but how, and you're thinking through it, and then you give up before you start, or you do it for a week and give up. But if you take 10 steps back and say, okay, here's the structure, here's what I'm going to follow for the next 3 weeks, then I'll do this, then I'll do this, and you start really small and create that path for yourself, you're setting yourself up from success for the beginning, because you can look and be like, okay, here, I know what to do. I know the little things that I can do. You're just making it easier for yourself. Structure can also help you create automatic cues, which in a habit loop, it's the cue, routine, and reward, and it follows that cycle over and over and over and over again. When you have structure, you're creating set cues that you're looking for and following throughout the day. So for example, cues could be time-based, like an 8 a.m. workout. They can be location-based, like leaving your gym bag by the door so that you know that you're going to go work out, or routine-based, where if you're going to have coffee, that could be your cue to then start journaling. When cues start to appear and you start to pick them intentionally, actions then follow those cues. You can tie them together without motivation being required. Structure also gives dopamine hits, which helps you stay connected to the progress, opposed to the aspect of having to perform at a perfection, right? When you have that structure and you're following it and you're showing up and you're doing it, it's okay if you're doing it some days 50%, some days 100%. You're showing up consistently and shifting so many areas of your life while doing it, and you're getting there. For example, this harder lifetime I just kind of talked about for myself, it's been the last about 3 weeks, and I have made it to my workouts. I've made it to my walk. I've done my habits. I've done my routines. Have they been peak performance? Nar, unfortunately. But have I shown up? Yes. That structure is giving me small wins that I need every day. And it's keeping me in a place where when I am back to that level of 100% or feeling my best and I can show up and can do more, I had that structure that was there helping me with those quick wins, giving me the ability to continue. Here is a little real life comparison about structure and why we need it that hits home for me. Imagine trying to drive somewhere that you've never been with no GPS, no map, no directions, no help. That I could never. I literally can't even make it to the gym I've been going to for years without GPS. Think about it that way. Imagine trying to get somewhere without that you've never been without a GPS and no directions. That is what structure is a GPS. It's directions. It's a path that you get to follow. And now let's compare that example with structure and motivation. Structure is your GPS, your Google Maps, whatever you use. And motivation would be you just hoping that you're going to get there by trying it. What we're going to do next is sit and figure out why we personally get sidetracked based on ourselves. And then from there, I'm going to give you one main habit in general that you could start doing, or I'm going to give you 2 specific habits that you can choose from per category. So if you're listening to this, you're like, you know what? I feel like I just get sidetracked in general. There's not one specific thing that's jumping out to me. Use the one main overall habit that I'm going to teach. But if you're like, you know what? Nope, that's me. That's me for sure. Look at the 2 habit options that I'm going to give and choose one to start with and try. Now, there's a couple steps we're going to go through to figure out why you're getting sidetracked in your life. Step one is I want you to start noticing when it happens. I talked about earlier becoming aware and how that is so powerful because once you're aware of what's going on, then you have the power to change it. So I want you to become aware of your pattern. Instead of asking yourself, why am I like this? Ask yourself, when does this usually happen? When am I usually getting sidetracked? For example, maybe it's on Thursday to Sunday, but you do great on Monday to Wednesday. Or maybe it's when you do good during the day, but then the nights are the chaos when you get sidetracked. Or maybe it's when you travel and you fall off your routines. Or maybe it's when there's stressful days. If it keeps happening in the same situations, it's not something random. It's more of a predictable pattern or habit that you've created. So I want you to ask yourself right now, when am I usually getting sidetracked? What area do I want to focus on right now? The second step that I'm going to have you do is start noticing what you feel right before you get sidetracked. So this is the cue / the trigger. So when you identify, this will just help you understand when that habit loop of becoming sidetracked or whatever you do when you get sidetracked, when that's going to happen. Now, here are the main sidetrack types I want you to sit and think about and decide which one you fall into, or you could just do in general, you get sidetracked. Number 1 could be getting sidetracked from an emotional perspective, like you fall off when you have big feelings. Number 2 could be you get sidetracked when you feel overwhelmed, like too much is happening too fast. Number 3 could be from dopamine, like you want constant dopamine, or that's what pulls you away. Number 4 could be from being unstructured, so not having a routine or not knowing what to do. And then number 5 could be from being a perfectionist, like you can't start because it won't be perfect. Some other real world examples, maybe you're overwhelmed, so you avoid, or you're bored, so you start scrolling or snacking, or you're stressed, so you comfort eat or zone out, or you're tired, so everything feels like too much, or you're feeling unmotivated, so you procrastinate. I want you to just check in and say, right before I get sidetracked, I usually feel blank. I get sidetracked when? What is that cue? The next step we're going to do, number 3, is notice what you do instead of your task. What is the actual distraction that you do when you're getting sidetracked? Your brain is going somewhere else and it's going to something that feels easier or safer. Maybe it's that you open Instagram instead of opening the project you're supposed to work on, or you clean instead of going to exercise, or you plan instead of doing, or you snack instead of sitting with discomfort, or you help someone else instead of focusing on yourself. I want you to now answer this question. Instead of doing the thing, I usually blank. And then that is how you're going to understand what your brain's escape route is. Oh, and that's the routine in the habit loop, right? The cue is when, what you're feeling, what's triggering it. The routine is what you're actually doing. Now for step 4, we're going to ask ourselves what actually feels good, like why that feels good. What is the payoff? What is the reward for being sidetracked? This step is the one that kind of removes shame and allows us to actually understand why we're doing it. We're not getting sidetracked just for fun. Like there's a reason why. So maybe it's because scrolling gives us relief from pressure at work, or snacking gives us comfort, or cleaning makes us feel productive. That's mine, right? I kind of explained that earlier. When I get sidetracked, it's because I don't feel productive. I don't feel like I'm accomplishing anything. I feel like I need to feel like I did something. So I go and clean because that's a quick win that will make me feel better. Maybe it's planning because you want to avoid failure. Maybe it's starting something new, which will give you a hit of dopamine. So now answer the question, being sidetracked gives me blank. Even if it's hurting me later, it gives me this in the now. Then for step 5, we're going to figure out what you actually need, because getting sidetracked is your brain needing something. So some examples of this is maybe you thought you needed motivation, but you actually need rest, or you thought you were lazy, but you actually need structure, or you thought you just don't care, but you actually need clarity on what to do next, or you thought you failed, but the goal was actually just too big. So ask yourself right now, what is my brain actually asking for? Again, this will all be in a worksheet that you guys can download and use, because I know I'm kind of going like brrr, and it's a lot. So download that worksheet also if you want to kind of go through this on your own after the episode. Now, if you don't have one main area that we just went over that you're like, okay, that's that, like that's what it is, and you want to just focus as a whole on creating a habit that helps you when it comes to getting sidetracked, what I want you to do is create the habit of asking yourself this question. It would be, what is the smallest intentional action that I can take right now towards the task that I'm being sidetracked from? So the cue would be in your habit loop. And remember, in a habit loop, you have a cue, a routine, and a reward, and it follows a cycle over and over until you form a habit. The cue is the trigger, the thing that's starting the habit. The routine is the habitual behavior, and then the reward is what's driving the habit loop. The cue that you would be creating for yourself is recognizing when you start being sidetracked. So when say it's like you're at work and you pick up your phone and you go on Instagram, that is your cue. The routine would be asking yourself, what is the smallest intentional action I can take right now? And the reward is that is your first step to a small hit of dopamine and getting back on track. Some other examples of little actionable steps that you can then take is 5 minutes of movement, opening a document if it's at work that you're putting off, drinking water, replying to just one email, putting on workout clothes. It is a small action that you're going to do to reboot the thinking part of your brain and stop the spiral of being sidetracked. Now let's go over 2 specific habit loops per each specific type of being sidetracked. First, if you're getting sidetracked based on emotions, maybe you struggle when emotions spike. The first habit is called the 90-second reset. So the cue would be noticing a strong emotion like stress, frustration, anxiety. The routine would then be pausing for 90 seconds, taking 5 slow breaths, and naming the emotion out loud. And then the reward is you're calming your body down, you're feeling grounded, and you're not making emotional decisions. The second habit that you could do is move the emotion. So for example, the cue could be feeling emotionally charged or restless. The routine could then be moving your body for 5 to 10 minutes, walking, stretching, shaking, breathing, doing something that you know specific to you that helps you when you feel big emotions. For me, writing is so helpful. So that's something that I could use my routine. And then the reward is you're emotionally releasing those things from your body to help you clear your mind and regain control. If you are someone who gets overwhelmed, and that's when you get sidetracked, here are 2 different habits. The first is the 10-minute start. The cue would be if a task feels overwhelming and you're trying to avoid it. The routine would then be setting a 10-minute timer and working on the smallest part of the task and then stopping when the timer ends. Usually, there's like studies behind this that basically starting is the hardest part, and usually the timer will end and people will continue on. But then the reward is relief, momentum, and progress without pressure. I personally love this habit when I'm feeling overwhelmed with work, starting a timer and just saying, okay, I'm just going to try for 5 minutes, because starting truly can be the hardest part sometimes. The second habit for when we feel overwhelmed is cutting it in half. I just recently did this and it is so helpful. The cue would be when you feel frozen by how big a task feels. And then the routine would be asking yourself, what is half of this? And then only doing half or a quarter. Then the reward is you're reducing that feeling of being overwhelmed, you're building confidence, and you have a clear next step. You're making it easier for yourself. If the task is too big and is overwhelming, you're backtracking, making it easier so that you can make progress. Let's say that you get sidetracked when it comes to dopamine. Maybe you struggle with stimulations that pull you away, like you want to go on your phone. The first habit would be a phone away focus block. I do this a lot too, and I love it. The key would be sitting down to work or focus, and the routine would be then putting your phone in another room, setting a 25-minute timer of when you can touch your phone next, and then just focusing on one task. And the reward there is deep focus. If your phone distracts you and it's something that you know you can turn to, our phone can act, seeing our phone, literally seeing a notification, seeing our phone can act as a cue to then pick that up and become sidetracked. So if it's out of sight, out of mind, you are going to help do one small thing to help yourself be set up for success. The second habit that you can do is delay the dopamine. So if you feel the cue of, I feel the urge to scroll, snack, or multitask, the routine could be then setting an alarm and saying, you know what, I'm going to wait 5 minutes, return to the task, and then choose my distraction intentionally. The reward is you're working on self-control, you're less impulsive because you're delaying it, and then you're making more intentional choices. If you are someone who feels like you are unstructured, and that is why getting sidetracked kind of derails you and is impacting you, the first habit is called the anchor habit that I want you to practice. The cue is a specific time of day that arrives that you're going to focus and create that structure. The routine is doing one small habit in the same place every single day. If you're doing this one, I want you to make it simple, easy, small. For example, journaling, walking, following some type of plan. One thing that you could start with is the anchor habit of if you make coffee or have caffeine in the morning, or you do something every day that you're already doing, like letting your dog out, feeding your cats, tying a habit there. So when you do that task at that specific time of day, saying, okay, I'm also going to sit down and journal, or I'm also going to turn on a podcast, or I'm also going to sit and read 10 pages, or I'm also going to take my dog on a walk. Creating that structure for yourself so you know that every single day you're showing up and doing that one small thing. Maybe it's feeling unstructured with work. My habit that I talked about earlier was sitting and writing that to-do list, and that gets me structured for the day. That's something that I'm always going to do that helps me feel successful. The reward there could be consistency, reduced decision fatigue, or a grounded start and reset. The second habit for this category is habit stacking, which you guys know I love habit stacking. That is when you take something that you're already doing, which I kind of just touched on in the other one, but it's where you take something that you already have to do and you pair it with something that you get to do. So for example, when I am driving, I'll always habit stack that with listening to a podcast because I have to drive. I'm doing that regardless, but I get to listen to a podcast. I'm stacking two things together. Whenever I do laundry, I listen to an audiobook because I have to do laundry. I have to put it away, but I stack that with another habit that I'm doing at the same time. Anytime I do laundry, I'm listening to an audiobook. Oh wait, actually there's two ways to look at habit stacking. That's one way. And then the second way is looking at actually stacking things on top of each other and creating almost like a set pattern. So for example, taking one thing and stacking the next habit immediately after. So you can choose which kind of habit stack you want to follow. For this example, let's look at the second kind of form of habit stacking since we kind of covered the first one and the last one. So your cue could be after you finish an existing habit like drinking coffee, brushing your teeth, clocking out from work, after you get dressed for the day. And the routine would be immediately starting the next new habit without a gap and without thinking. You go immediately into action, and the reward is creating an automatic follow through with less resistance and smooth transitions. Another example of this, because this is specifically for when you feel unstructured and that's what leads you to be sidetracked. Say you create the habit of writing a to-do list every day. You could stack the next habit as I'm immediately after I do my to-do list, the first thing I'm going to do every time is go through my emails. That could be a quick habit stack that would give you more structure. Say you struggle with being a perfectionist and that is what kind of gets you sidetracked. Sometimes I struggle with this. The first habit we're going to go over is the bare minimum rule. So this habit loop, the cue is when you catch yourself overthinking or delaying things because they're not perfect. The routine would be doing a small version of that task, like doing 5 minutes, one page, one quick set of something. And then the reward is relief from pressure or momentum. And then that proof that starting is easy, even if you can't show up all the way, even if it's not perfect. And the second habit here is called the messy first draft. And in this habit loop, the cue is when you want things to be perfect before starting, so it delays you from starting. Or if you don't know what to do, like you just want it to be perfect, but it's not, so you feel like that's delaying you. The routine would be creating a messy first version of it and just trying it and attempting it to get yourself to do it and see that it's not that bad. And then the reward is freedom from perfection, creative flow, progress without self-criticism. I shared kind of my favorite habit for what I do to help me from being sidetracked, which really is writing a to-do list. But I'm really excited to sit and go through and choose other habits from this episode that will personally help me. I do a lot of these a lot of the time, but I honestly, I'm excited for the worksheet so that I can print them out and have these available to look at for when I need them. Anyway, that is the end of going from sidetracked to success. You do not have to change your life overnight, but picking one of these habits to start working on and also just becoming aware of when and where in your life you do get sidetracked is going to be so, so powerful. All the changes that I teach in this podcast, on social media, in my life, are meant to be small changes that are realistic, that you can keep consistent and that can be sustainable so that you truly can create change throughout your life, not just one time, one night. It is changes that you create that work for you and that help you change your life. Anyway, I love you guys and I will see you on next week's episode. Bye.